And if you have it, I can't hear you, but say amen anyway. Psalm 37. And I'm going to read verses 1 through 9 today. Psalm 37, 1 through 9. Do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. For like the grass, they will soon wither. Like green plants, they will soon die away. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your ways to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Be still before the Lord and patiently wait for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Do not fret. It leads only to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land. Father, thank you for your word. Now speak to us through your word. Hide me so that only you are seen. Make me quiet so that only you are heard. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. So I struggled to come up with a title for today, but I'm gonna go with the one that was already in my head. So if you're a note taker, I want you to. If you're a note taker, I want you to write down this title: Thoughts and Prayers. Thoughts and Prayers. That's what we're gonna call. That's what we're gonna call this today: Thoughts and Prayers. Now, if you are in the United States or really anywhere around the world, you're probably well aware of the many tragedies and evil acts that we have seen perpetrated across the country. Now, evil happens every single day. And depending on where you live, you may be protected from such evils. Maybe your house is in a community behind a gate. And that doesn't mean you're rich, because apartment complexes have gates too. So maybe you're shielded from some things, and maybe you're in a place where bad things happen all the time and nobody talks about it. But there are some that we have seen over the last couple weeks, particularly that involve people, evil people doing evil deeds and going and killing innocent people. And when I say killing innocent people, I mean people who have not done anything to them, perfect strangers. So when we're not talking about mobsters going after each other, or gang members, or drug dealers. We're talking about evil people targeting innocent people who have nothing to do with whatever it is that they seem to be mad about. We have had a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York. We've had one in Southern California. Another one in South Texas, about 3 hours away from San Antonio, just an hour from the USA-Mexico border. We've seen these horrific acts taking place, and one of the things that we hear from some people, we hear we need action on this particular thing. It's been too long. We need action, and then still from others we hear there's no action needed. We just need to not take any action. But overall, from whichever camp a person sits in, one of the things we get a lot of are thoughts and prayers. And today I want to use this psalm, a portion of this Psalm of David, to talk about thoughts and prayers. But what else can happen? What else can happen? There's one story in particular that I want to share with you about a man who was upset. He had his grievances, and so with the grievances that he had, he packed up his car and he took some guns with him, and he drove several hours to a particular location. This place was a church. And in this church, it was mostly older people. And he sat with them and fellowshiped with them for an hour or so, spent time with them, talked to them. They didn't know who he was, but they welcomed him in anyway. Now, you might be thinking I'm talking about something that happened years ago. I'm talking about something that happened just a couple of weeks ago. It just doesn't. It's not as popular a story to share. It does not, for whatever reason, does not tug at the heartstrings of everyone in this country, no matter which camp you are in, about what should be done. This man fellowshiped with these churchgoers for over an hour, but what they did not know is that this man had chained all of the doors shut. He put super glue inside the keyholes so no one could open the doors. And he placed Molotov cocktails around in different places. He planned to do some serious harm and destruction. After about an hour fellowshipping with these older church people, he jumped into action with his plan. But things didn't go quite as planned for him. See, we saw in Buffalo that things went just as planned for the evil person who committed that act of terrorism. In fact, he walked away. We see in South Texas that for a number of reasons, the evil person who committed the act of terror against children harmed 38 people, 21 of whom lost their lives. But this man in this church, when he jumped into action and began to carry out his plan, it didn't quite go as he had planned. See, there was a doctor in the room. It was mostly older people, but there was a doctor in the room. And this doctor, he was considerably younger than all of the other people. And he jumped into action too. And he saw this man begin firing upon his fellow congregants. He jumped into action and he tackled the shooter. Then there was another man, and this other man, once the shooter had been tackled, took a chair and hit the man, this assailant, this evil person, hit them in the head. And everyone jumped on him and they tied the person up and they were apprehended. And only one person died. Now, I don't say only to minimize it, but in contrast to what we have seen, one person lost their life and 4 others were injured. What does this have to do with what the psalmist is talking about in this text? Well, there are some things that we have to come to grips with that are talked about by David just in these first 9 verses. Some things that are going to take place, some things that are going to happen, things we are going to see. So there will be people who do evil. We're not going to be able just yet to get away from people doing evil. It says in verse 1, do not fret because of those who are evil, or be envious of those who do wrong. So there are people who are evil. There are people who will do wrong. We have to accept that is a reality. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything. I just want to tell you what we should expect. There will be people who create injustice. There will be people who create injustice. And we see David talking about that again in verse 1. There are those who will do evil. There are those who will do wrong. It talks about people who have wicked schemes. Something else that there will be, people will succeed in their wrongdoing. People will succeed in their wrongdoing. How do I know people will succeed? See, now I have never been at the scene of a shooting, but I have had somebody pull a gun on me. And this person thought that they perceived me and the person I was with as threats. And so they pulled a gun and said that they were going to shoot us if we did not walk away. We walked away and called the police. And the police came and they stopped the person. And we were standing far off with another officer. We saw them stop him, they get out the car, and we see everything going on. And then we see him get back in his car and drive away. See, he was a police officer in the next town over. And even though he might have killed us, taken our lives, he was still able to go on about his night, go have dinner. And there's nothing that would cause me to believe that if he had actually did what he said he was going to do, that he still would not have just been able to drive away. People will have success in spite of the evil things that they do. We see it with billionaires. I know some people think that, if we all work hard enough, we can become millionaires and billionaires. Let me tell you right now, and this is not political, this is economics. You cannot become a billionaire without disenfranchising some other person. You have to take advantage of someone somewhere along the way in order to accumulate that amount of wealth. And then you just live luxurious. Seems like they're successful. We're going to see the success of people who take advantage of other people. And there are people who are right now plotting wicked schemes. Right now, they are plotting wicked schemes. Like, on one hand, the people who say, like, hey, it's not, guns don't kill people, people kill people. On one hand, it's true. On one hand, it's true. No matter what the weapon is, like the songwriter said, that no weapon formed against us will prosper. It didn't say that weapons would not be formed. There are weapons, and the weapons are formed. And not every weapon that's formed gets used against us, but when it is used against us, sometimes it seems like it can prosper in the moment. Sometimes, I've seen people say, and I'm sure some of you have seen on social media, people saying I don't know, these weapons, God, these weapons sure do seem to be prospering. We're going to see that. It's going to feel like the weapons are prospering. And here's what we should not do. Here's what we can learn from what David says in this 37th division of the Psalm, just these first 9 verses, some things that we can find not to do. The very first thing that we see is do not fret. Do not fret. Now, what does fret mean? Do not fret, my pet. What does it mean to fret? Well, the word in the original language, the word that is used actually means to burn or to be kindled with anger. So that is like when bad things happen and someone does something and it seems like they're getting away with it. They've plotted out these wicked schemes and they've been successful and they seem to be doing fine and they might get arrested, but they stop for food on the way to jail, or they have a paid leave and then they come off of desk duty and they keep their jobs, or they get fired from one place and go to another place to commit the same atrocities. But it says, do not fret. Do not start to burn. Do not be kindled. If you've ever started a fire, and I don't mean arson. If you have problems with arson, I want you to get help. I just mean if you've ever started like a fire in a fireplace or a fire pit or in a grill, you need something called kindling to get the fire going. Now, kindling will burn out really quickly. So you got to place it just right. And sometimes you got to add a little bit more. Like if you're preparing a grill to make some food, there's a certain way you want to stack up the briquettes, and underneath it you want your kindling. Maybe ball up some paper, or fold over some cardboard so that the air can get through it, but it still ignites quickly. I'm giving you some free game right now, but the kindling is going to burn up quickly, and then the things around it will catch on fire. See, so the reason David tells us not to fret, the reason we shouldn't fret and just have that kindling, that smoldering on the inside of us, is because for right now, that's just on the inside. For right now, that's just on the inside. And so we're burning on the inside because of the evil that we see other people doing. And specifically, it says being kindled with anger. I'm not talking about righteous indignation. I'm talking about just a burning on the inside that makes us angry because of those who do evil. We got to be careful. We got to be careful with how we dwell on the things that we see happening. We have to be careful about how we dwell on the things that happen to us, that happen in our communities. We have to be careful about how we dwell on the wrongdoing that we see taking place in our world, even in our churches. We have to be careful. Another thing that David instructs us not to do is don't wish that we could be like them. I've seen and I've heard people say, I wish I could be ... I wish I couldn't care. I wish I didn't care so much so I could whatever. I wish I wasn't bothered by. I wish I could just don't wish. We shouldn't wish. Like, be careful what you wish for, because if we think long enough, I wish I could be like these other people. Again, in verse 1, don't be envious. Do not be envious of those who do wrong. Because when they get away with it, it's like, man, if I get away with it, like I could, like if okay, I'm gonna tell you one of mine. I believe that if under different circumstances, if my parents had not worked so hard to give my sister and I a good life, and they had not been there for us, I might have possibly been able to move some weight and had been successful at it. You follow what I'm saying? I might have been able to move some weight, and it maybe even had, instead of this rug that I have on the floor from Lowe's, maybe I would have one imported that was made from alpaca. Right. I think I might have been able to move just a little bit of weight. And every once in a while, when times get hard, I've had the fleeting thought, like, I don't know where to get a brick, but if I could move one, that would solve my problems. I think I could get away with it. They get away. Why can't I be like El Chapo pre 2018? We glorify Pablo Escobar and all these other people. Why can't I? If I could only. We see there's a rapper and his real name, I can't think of his real name right now, but it's William Roberts. I think that's what his real name is, and that sounds real proper. I think he's even like the third, William Roberts the third, but he gave himself a stage name after an infamous drug dealer. Rick Ross was a real person. Don't envy. Don't wish we could be like them. Don't even pretend like we could be like them. Another thing that David says not to do, don't worry about people seeming to get away with it. Don't worry when it seems like people are getting away with it. Verse 7, be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Right here, do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. It's going to seem like they're having some success. But again, we shouldn't be turned just towards anger. We should not allow that burning sensation on the inside to smolder for too long. See, because if it smolders for too long on the inside of us, there are other parts of us that could catch fire. There are other parts of us that could be ignited. Where does it say it? It's in here. It says that See, I switched Bibles. I should have stayed in my other Bible because I saw exactly where, here it is in verse 8. In verse 8, refrain from anger, turn from wrath. Refrain from anger and turn from wrath. Like, so don't be angry. Like, let it go. Refrain from anger, turn from wrath, do not fret. And here's why. This is the part right here. Here's why we don't want this burning on the inside, because it leads only to evil. That type of anger that turns into hatred, possibly, as it burns on the inside of us, and we don't do the right things, it only leads to evil. That kindling, that smoldering on the inside is only going to ignite something. And I'm not talking about igniting our passions. No, no. There's more than thoughts and prayers that we should be offering, but it shouldn't come from anger that dwells and burns and kindles inside of us, because again, it leads only to evil. And then what else we should not do is do not be overcome. Do not be overcome. It says in here that God overcomes. If you read all the way through this 37th Psalm, I couldn't do all of it, it's too many verses, but if you read all the way through it, we see that God overcomes. And Jesus even said, like, don't be afraid. I've already overcome the world. So we cannot be ourselves. We cannot be overcome. There is a scripture I want us to look at real quick. It is in 2 Peter 2:19. Turn there with me real quick. 2 Peter 2:19. Because I want you to see what this says. We don't want to be overcome. 2 Peter. See, I didn't bookmark it so that we would all have the same amount of time to get there. 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 19, and it says, it's talking about some other people who do evil and spread false teachings and cause harm within the church. Verse 19 says they promise them freedom while they themselves are slaves of depravity. For people are slaves to whatever has mastered them. Another translation, the ESV says, whatever overcomes a person becomes their master. We become slave to the things that overcome us. So if we are overcome by evil, we become slave to evil. Whatever overcomes us, we become slave to. Let's see what it says in Romans. Go to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 21. It tells us two things. It tells us, do not be overcome by evil. Overcome evil with good. So do not be overcome by evil. And then if we jump back to what Peter said, whatever overcomes us, we become slave to. And going back to what David said in verse 8, don't fret. Don't be kindled with anger. Don't let that anger overcome us. It only leads to evil. You see, are you picking up what I'm putting down? You see the dots. You see the dots being connected. So I've told you what we have to expect. I've told you what we should not do. But the question is, well, what should we do? What can we do when we see these evil things taking place, when it seems like evil people just keep getting away, literally, with murder? What do we do when it seems like even in the church, There are evil people doing evil things and getting away with it for years, ruining people's lives. What are we supposed to do? If I'm not supposed to fret, if I'm not supposed to be envious of these people who are getting away with things, if I'm not supposed to dwell on my anger, if I'm not supposed to fret and just let it burn inside of me, what are we supposed to do? Well, David tells us. Verse 3, Psalm 37, verse 3. Trust in the Lord and do good. Trust in the Lord. Look, it's easy not to trust God sometimes. When we go by what we see, if I just go by what I see, I don't know, God. I'm not so sure you know what you're doing. Maybe you're too far away. I need to trust in something that I can put in my hands. That's what I need. Early on, back when Medea only existed in plays, Medea said that she was going to hold her peace, but then she pulled out a gun, and that was the peace that was going to surpass all understanding for her, right? And sometimes that's what we want. That's the peace that I want. I'm not worried. I can't see God. I don't see what God is doing. God doesn't seem to be intervening. I want my own peace. So I'm going to get my own peace. Matter of fact, I'm going to have a peace. I'm going to have peace on a dresser. I'm going to have peace in my car. I'm going to have peace in my pocket. It's going to be peace in the umbrella stand by the door. Does anybody even have one of those? An umbrella holder like by their front door? I don't think I've ever seen one of those in a house that people live in, only like in model homes or at like Restoration Hardware. Maybe that's something that the wealthy people have, because I don't even think I have like a long umbrella. Like, where am I going to put it? Anyway, I can't get my own peace. We have to trust God. That's what we can do. We can continue to trust God. The next thing we can do is to keep doing the good that we know to do. Keep doing what we know is right. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Like, we need to dwell or to rest. We need to just settle down in the land and enjoy safe pasture. What pasture is that? David had also said in what we numbered the 23rd Psalm, that our shepherd guides us in green pastures. That's the pasture that we should dwell in. We should enjoy it. We should enjoy it. What else should we do? Delight in the Lord. Delight in the Lord. Verse 4, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Delight in the Lord. Now, this word delight, when I was doing some study on this word, like, I know what the word delight means. Like, it's one of those words that I'm not even sure I can really define it using other words. It's just one of those things, like, what delight is, like good, but it's like, but delightful. I don't even know how to describe it. But the way the word in the original language that David used, it speaks of a lightness, of a delicacy. So almost like living in the clouds. Live in enjoyment is one of the definitions that I saw. Live in enjoyment. In this light, dainty space. Like, that's what delightful is. Like, this is just delightful. It's not good, because good could be like, forceful good. It could be stern good. It could be, yeah, it's good, but delightful. Like, it just, it almost makes you float away. Like, is it delightful? Don't you feel you just kind of float away when you say delightful? Delight in the Lord. Live in enjoyment in the Lord. And then we should commit. We should commit our ways to the Lord. Verse 5, commit your ways to the Lord. Trust him. Commit your ways to the Lord. Now, this word commit, it it actually means like to the word commit in the original language. In English, like we know what commit means to, like I choose this thing and I'm going to stay with this thing, and like I'm putting my marker here and this is my thing, right? It means it paints the picture of rolling something. So the same root word is used in Hebrew when it talks about rolling a stone, to roll a stone away. Now, if you think to roll a stone, like if you need to roll a stone, that means it's probably big, it's probably heavy. Because if it's not, then you could lift it, you could pick it up. But to roll a stone is like you got to put some weight into it, right? And you dig your feet into the ground, make sure you have good footing, and you lean in and you begin to push, right? So write this down. Take your rock and roll with it. That's what we're supposed to take, our rock and roll with it. Like to do this is committing. I'm not standing next to the rock. I'm not letting the rock stay there. I intend to roll the rock and to break its inertia. I'm not just going to let it go any old way. I am committing. So if this rock is my ways, it's my way of being, it's my way of living, it is how I choose to go about my life, I am committing it to the ways of the Lord. I'm going to, with all my might, push it in the direction of the ways of the Lord. I know which way it is, so I'm going to commit my ways to the Lord. That's what we should do. Not sit around and wonder what could happen, what should happen, or why I ought to. Commit your ways to the Lord. Take your rock and roll with it. And like I said earlier, let that anger go. Verse 8, refrain from anger and turn from wrath. To turn from means like leave it alone, drop it, let it go. It doesn't mean that we don't fight against injustice. It doesn't mean that we don't speak up for those who have no voice. It doesn't mean that we lift those up, that we don't lift up those who have been knocked down or cast to the side. No, it just means that we don't do it in anger. Let that go. You can always tell when somebody's doing something in anger. We see it all the time. Somebody expresses something. They may be somebody in your group chat or somebody in your Facebook group if you still log on to that website, or you may see it. You may see it in any number of places, and someone describes something that bothers them or upsets them, and the response is like we can't even respond to what they're talking about, because it's like, who hurt you? You're hurting. I see it. You're not mad about what you say you're mad about. You're mad on the inside. So if we carry our anger into our acts of supposed justice and supposed righteousness and supposed good deeds, if we take our anger into that, if anger is what is fueling it, because we haven't let it go, that's what people are going to see. It's like, I see you serving, but why are you mad? I see you helping out and appreciate the hand, but you seem kind of angry. And look, and nobody wants you to cook for them when you're angry. That's not going to taste right. Why don't you just sit down? Don't cook. Just come on out the kitchen. Come on out. Just have a seat. It's good. We'll eat something out of a box. Order something. Rather, one of us will cook something, but rather than somebody cooking, like you know what I'm talking about, because you can taste it in the food. You can taste it in the food when somebody made something and they was angry, like, I'm doing this good deed, flipping these pancakes, and pancakes are more godly than waffles. Thought I'd throw that in there, but just do this, and I'm mixing it up, and you mixing it up mad until there's still little pockets of flour in the mix. Like you can tell, just let it go. Let that part go. And this other thing that we can do, going back to Romans chapter 12, verse 21, where it says, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. We don't overcome evil with more evil. We don't overcome hatred with more hatred. We don't overcome acts of violence with more violence. Like, how does that work? It's like, oh, you committed an act of violence, and so your punishment is more violence. Like, how, we have a 3-year-old, right? And we're trying to teach him not to do certain things and other things to do. One of the things we don't want him to do is hit his little brother. And instinctually, just because, if you're around my age and my generation, we were raised the way we were raised. And so it was quite normal. Like, there weren't alternatives to spankings. Like, what's a restriction? What's a grounded? What's in the grounds? My parents weren't like that. I'm talking about other people's. I promise my parents never threatened to put me in the ground. But sometimes instinctually, I want to like slap his wrist or pop him on his thigh and say, "Don't hit your brother." And then I just, like, one day, if I did that, I believe he might stop and say to himself, "How are you gonna hit me and tell me not to hit?" Like, the math ain't mathing. We cannot overcome evil with evil. And that's what happens. If evil overcomes us, we become slave to evil, and we're no longer able to overcome evil. That's why it says don't be overcome by evil, because then all we're going to be able to do is more evil. But overcome evil with good. Now, that's all good and fine. We know what to expect. We know that we're going to see some evil in this world. We know that we know what not to do. Now we know what to do. But if you've already done some of those things and you tried it, if you live long enough, you know that's not enough. Well, David also tells us what God is going to do. God is going to answer our prayers and petitions. Verse 4, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. The desires of our heart, the prayers of our heart, our petition, our deepest petition, the things that we long for. If we delight ourselves, if we find ourselves living in enjoyment with the Lord, he'll give us the desires of our heart. Now, I want to point out that the desire of my heart might be for an Aston Martin, like a dark gray Aston Martin, maybe with red seats. That might be the desire of my heart, but that's not the type of desire that God is going to fulfill when I delight myself in him. He might still bless me with it one day when it makes sense for me to have a 2-seater, but that's not what I'm talking about. See, because when I delight myself in the Lord, then I am delighted by the things of the Lord. And so now the things that I desire are going to be the things of the Lord. So when I delight myself in the Lord, rather than focusing on the things that make me angry, focusing on the injustice and focusing on the upset, not saying that we don't try to do anything about it, just not dwelling on it and letting it fester and burn with anger, but I find delight in the Lord, then the things that I desire will be of the Lord and he will give them to me. And he may throw in the Aston Martin. I don't know. We will have prosperity. Keep reading through chapter 37. It says that he will cause us to prosper. But let me be clear. It says prosper in peace. See, that's what prosperity is having peace. Because you can have all the money in the world and have a house with more bedrooms than you can sleep in a week's time, and still not have peace. Prosperity is peace. But if he wants to throw in the Aston Martin one day, I'm not going to be mad. So God will answer. He's going to answer our prayers. He's going to act. Verse 5, commit your ways to the Lord, trust in him, and he will do this. Another translation says, and he will act. He will take action. God is not dormant. God is not doing nothing. God is not just passively sitting around and watching time go by. Remember, God sits outside of time in eternity. I don't have time to re-unpack all that right now, but we are experiencing time, but God is not experiencing time the way we experiencing time. None of this is happening passively for him. So if we commit our way, remember, commit, if we engage and we break the inertia of what is sitting still and begin to roll our rock in the direction of the way of the Lord and put our trust in him, we'll see the action that he is taking. If we go in the opposite way of where he is and what he is doing and his ways, then of course we're not going to see what he's doing. If the GPS tells me to make a left and I make a right, I'm not going to see what I want to see, because what I want to see is down that street. And the GPS is going to continually, well, it doesn't say recalculating anymore. I think they stopped that because it's recalculating. You're not going the way of the Lord. You're not going to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living going this way. Recalculate, go back, turn around, stop it. Ending route. We have to be going in the way of the Lord, and we will see him act. Next, God in verse 6 says that God will cause our righteousness and justice to flow. Now, there's two ways to look at this. Verse 6 saying, he will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. I read that out of the NIV, and that is thought for thought and word for word, kind of the same thing. But when you read it directly from its original, the way it was originally written, another way it could be taken is that when we do this, his action, he will cause our righteousness. So one way to look at it is he will cause righteousness and justice to be done toward us, but that he will cause our righteousness. See, because no one is righteous but the Lord, and our righteousness is as filthy rags. But if we commit to his way and we put our trust in him, he will, by his Holy Spirit, cause righteousness to come from us. He will, by his Holy Spirit, cause justice to come from us. See, we cannot fight injustice with more injustice. We have to commit our ways to the Lord, and he will cause justice to come from us. He will cause it. The fruit of the Spirit talked about in Galatians chapter 5, we don't grow the fruit of the Spirit on our own. No, that's not just a grow where you're planted kind of thing. No, we have to go commit our ways, commit ourselves to the way of the Lord. The Holy Spirit produces that fruit. God produces that fruit. God produces the righteousness. God produces justice. When we do things his way, justice comes about through us. Not just from, a law, or demanding change, or joining in a protest. Not that any of those things are wrong, but it's how we live and allow him to work through us, and justice will be caused. He will cause our righteousness. He will cause our justice to flow. And then the other thing that he's going to do, he's going to cut off the wicked. Ultimately, that's what it says. That's why we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to fret. We don't have to dwell or burn or any of that stuff, or be envious. They will be cut off. It may look like they're succeeding right now. It might look all right today, but they will be cut off. Where is it? There's a verse in here, verse 12 and 13, which wasn't included in our reading, but I want you to hear this. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them. Verse 13, but the Lord laughs. But the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. If you've ever been in charge of some children at a daycare or babysitting, you have your own, or you may have seen a child do something that's so ridiculous, you can't even be mad. It's like, no, do you see this? My wife and I do, like, all the time. Sometimes we just laugh at some of this stuff. Do you see this? And we can laugh about it because, like, he's 10, he's 3, he's 1. The day is coming. Their day is coming when they are responsible for themselves. And so we've got some time to continue teaching them, and there is yet time. While the blood is still coursing warm through their veins, there is yet time. So we can just laugh about it today. The Lord laughs at the wicked. Like, oh, you're not getting away, you're just getting by. So if God is laughing, why are we so mad? What you mad for? Big mad or little mad? No, I'm going to trust in the Lord. I'm going to commit my ways to the Lord. I'm going to allow him to use me as a vessel for his righteousness and his justice. I don't have to do everything, man. I can do stuff in love. I can walk in love. And God will cause. I will delight myself in the Lord. I will live in enjoyment. See, too often, if you've been in church long enough, then you probably heard, or you might have even said, like, I'm not going to let the devil steal my joy. The devil don't steal joy. Here's my joy. Would you like it? I don't have any use for it right now. We give it away. I'm not giving up my enjoyment. No, ma'am. No, sir. We can live in enjoyment. If God is laughing, I can enjoy myself too. But not only are the wicked going to be cut off, verse 9, for those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land, or those who wait on the Lord will inherit the land. And the prophet Isaiah said, because you probably thought that's what I was going to say, that they that wait on the Lord shall have renewed strength, mount up on wings as eagles, and they shall run and not get weary. Their legs won't get tired. We can, when we put our trust in God, when we do what we know is right, we find enjoyment in the Lord, and we commit our ways to him, letting go of the anger, then we won't be overcome by this evil. That is what we have to offer beyond thoughts and prayers. Yeah, there's something we can do. Now, there's part of the story that I started with, part of the story I did not tell you. The man who came in with evil intentions, who began to shoot people and was attacked by this doctor. The doctor is the one who died. He was younger than everybody else. Everyone else who was shot. But he had the vitality, and he had he was able to jump into action and save lives, and ended up losing it. He gave his life. And the police said that he may have saved dozens of lives. Something else I didn't tell you. Remember, I said that there was a man who hit the guy in the head with a chair. That man happened to be just visiting, but he was coming back to visit. See, he had served as the pastor of that church for 20 years. He was the shepherd of that church for 20 years. And he had gone away to do some other things, to do some other ministry work, but he came back. He came back. And it was because of the son of that church who lost it, who gave his life for everyone else. It was because of the shepherd who hit the man, this evil man, in the head. It allowed everyone else to come and tie this man up so he could not only cause no more harm and cause no more, and danger was eliminated, but he lived. And he's been arrested, and he will await trial, and justice will be served. And see, God did the same thing. God sent his son to come down and take the bullet for us. He came and he took the bullet for us. And yes, some are wounded. Some are wounded, but they're not going to die. There are fewer casualties because he chose to surrender his life. And this shepherd who was the pastor of this church, in my mind, I see that as the act of God as well. Because he was there and he led them for a time. And then he came back and he took out the evil guy. That's what God has done for us. He sent his son who came onto this earth and walked with people. There is historical record of Jesus outside of the Bible. Jesus was a real human. But see, Jesus was also completely God. And so even though he took the bullet for us and he died, and then he rose again, he left, he's coming back. And when he comes back, he's going to hit the devil in the head with a chair. He's going to take him out, and justice will be served. We ought not fret right now because of the things that we see happening. We ought to delight ourselves in the Lord. We ought to commit our ways to him, and he will bring about righteousness and justice.